The Jim Feist Pro Football Handicapping Show, every Monday at noon on the patio at Dom DeMarco's.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Jim Feist Pro Football Handicapping Show here on the patio at Dom DeMarco's Pizzeria and Wine Bar, where the wine flows and the good times roll. Week 2, I'm going to introduce the panel. My name's Tommy Canale. I'll be the moderator for the show. But first, the man who has his name on the show is the leader in sports information and sports gaming industry with over 60 years of experience. Bettors have trusted him as a source of handicapping information worldwide. The award-winning handicapper and undisputed champion in sports handicapping, Jim Feist.
Last week you said 40, so I aged 20 years in 1 week?
In 1 week.
Wow.
Look at all the experience you've got in 1 week.
1 week. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here, my guests. Paul Bovi, Matt Youmans, for filling in here this week. It's absolutely awesome to have the guests here. And all the people that are here. Welcome, everybody. It's going to be a great week. We had some surprises last week. And, of course, this is going to be a mini trash Aaron Rodgers week,
Okay.
I think.
Well, let's start right there, because you and I talked about this. It's probably a good question to start with. I know you want to trash Aaron Rodgers, and
I don't really want to, but
you have to.
It's fun.
It's fun too?
It's fun.
All right, let me ask Paul and Matt this question as well, because you had to think about it. Most underrated quarterback in the NFL right now?
It's not Daniel Jones. Let me see. I'm
going to go Baker Mayfield.
Baker Mayfield.
That's a good one.
I think he's a quarterback who's learned how to win in the NFL, and actually right now, going into tonight's game, he's got 71% completions, 15 touchdowns, and he was a guy he was a cast-off in Cleveland as trash, and now he's become one of the better quarterbacks in the league.
We talked about this last week, Matt. You were here listening. He's somebody who's grown up. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't think he was ready for the NFL when he was in Cleveland, but now I think he's grown up and he wants it. Yeah. You said, who did you say the backup for who?
Well, I said it was Joe Flacco. Every time he plays, he wins.
I've got one now.
Who you got?
I've got Mason Rudolph. Now, he didn't have a particularly good game yesterday. He was 25 of 40. But I think if you look back last year, he did great work for Pittsburgh when he came in. He rode the bench for 3.5 years. They got rid of him, went to Tennessee, been playing behind Levis. He should be starting right now. Unfortunately, he fumbled a few times yesterday, but I really think this is a starting quarterback in the NFL right now, and they have to give him a chance.
Jim, let's go back with you. What is, let me rephrase it. What has Aaron Rodgers done to the Jets?
Destroyed them.
Okay, you want to elaborate?
Well, first of all, I mean, I don't know the man, and I'm not going to trash him as a human being. I never met him. He's naturally one of the greatest passers that ever threw the ball. He's so natural at doing it. He was in college. He was in the pros. He went to Green Bay, sat for a while behind the other guy that did pretty damn good too, Favre. But he seems to be a little bit of a head case and an egomaniac. That's the way I read him. He brings in the offensive coordinator, who everybody thought might be the worst offensive coordinator in the business. Now that guy has got somebody else calling the plays. I'm sure he helped get rid of Saleh, who was a tremendous defensive coordinator when he was with the Niners. Obviously had some impact with the defense on the Jets, because since he's gone, the last 2 weeks he's gone, they're not as good. I believe Aaron's a problem, and he sold a bill of goods to the ownership, and they bought it, and I think it was a mistake.
Matt or Paul, agree or disagree?
No, I agree. Actually, if you go back to Brett Favre, when he left Green Bay and went to the Jets, it didn't go well, right? And it's history repeating itself here with Rodgers and his failures with the Jets. The quote from Rodgers after the game last night was, the energy was a little bit flat. The team didn't have energy. Well, I put that mostly on the quarterback. Quarterback and the coach got to bring the energy and set the tone for the team. And Rodgers is a laid-back, too cool for school type of guy. And I think that affects the attitude of the team. He had 2 interceptions last night, one not really his fault, but he just says he's faded the last few years. That's pretty obvious. He can't move around the pocket. He's not as accurate as a passer. He's got happy feet now because when he gets pressure, he can't get out of the pocket and make plays, so he's a different quarterback. And also, if you saw the Jets last night lose in prime time and feel like you've seen that before, I saw today that the Jets and Giants in night games since 2019 are 4-32 straight up. So if you got a New York team playing at night, bet against them.
Wow.
Matt, while you were talking about that, this week 8, Jets Patriots. You like, don't like?
No, if I played the Jets this week, I think it would have to be on a teaser. The Pats are so bad right now, and this could be one of those get-right type of games. Really, the only good game Aaron Rodgers has played this season was against the Patriots. What was that, Paul, week 3?
Yeah,
I think it was week 3,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Thursday night, week 3?
Week 3, yeah. I actually played this game on next week. I played the over 41 all around town. They bumped it up to 41.5. Circa went to 42. The Jets have multiple injuries in the secondary. They lost Chuck Clark to the IR. He was a very important piece of their secondary. Reed was out coming into the game last night, and then they lost 2 players during the game. Ashton Davis, who was a very capable backup for this in the safety position, he went out as well, and now they really have problems on the back end. So Drake May wasn't terrible on Sunday. I believe he was 26-37 for 260 plus. He's certainly an improvement over the quarterback they had in the first game, Jacoby Brissett. So I think this game lands on the high side, and the Jets have problems in the back end, so they're going to need more scoring for sure to somehow get through this season and possibly get to the postseason.
They've also got problems on their defensive front. The Jets have been bulldozed defensively by power running attacks the last couple of weeks. The Bills aren't even a great running team, and they ran all over the Jets. The Steelers ran for 149 yards last night. Najee Harris topped 100 yards, so it's not just the back end. The Jets got problems on the front end, all 3 levels of their defense, but they are going to get Hassan Reddick this week. Jim, you were talking about Aaron Rodgers. Everybody was happy last week when Devontae Adams came in, right? Everything was going to be right. Or a wide receiver's not going to fix your problems.
Well, I
Adams
agree.
last night, I know you didn't.
I thought their offensive line needed more help than they
Right.
needed.
Definitely need help on the offensive line. Adams, by the way, had 3 catches for 30 yards last night.
That's not going to pay the bills.
No. Jim, the week, or yesterday, what surprised you the most?
Pardon me?
What game yesterday maybe surprised you the most yesterday?
Oh boy. First of all, I lost the bet, or I would have lost the bet had I not played the money line on it. I had Packers. I thought they were very disappointed in the way they played the game. I think they turned the ball over 3 times, very sloppy. There was enough injuries on Houston that they should have won that game a lot easier. So if I had to play normally, and actually Matt and I talked about it a little earlier, we both have the tendency, if a game is 3 or less and we're on the favorite, we usually play the money line. I did, so I did cash it, but a lot of people don't do that, and they lay the 2.5 or the 3, and they didn't cash.
You talked about Green Bay and hell of a game yesterday with Detroit and Minnesota, and I think Minnesota showed something that they're maybe better than most people think, and possibly a team that can make some waves later in the season. But as you and I talk, there's still people that believe Green Bay will win this division. Paul, Matt, you agree or disagree?
Well, I think they got a fair shot. I think Detroit definitely took a hit with the loss of Hutchinson. Their stats yesterday, very close in that Minnesota game, almost identical, but of course it showed up in the scoreboard. But Green Bay yesterday, very, very disappointing to win that game by only 2 points. I know I also played the money line, also played some -3 at even money, most on the money line, fortunately. But imagine holding the wide receivers for the Texans to 34 yards total. Diggs 1 catch for 23, and that was about it, and only winning the game by 2 points. So they got to do a little bit better in putting teams away that they should, because as Jim alluded to, The Texans had a lot of injuries yesterday, notably to the secondary. Jimmy Ward and Lassiter were out, and also a few linebackers didn't play as well. So they got to do a little bit better, but certainly Green Bay has a good shot to win the division. It's going to be a scramble up front, a three-headed scramble, and we'll see who comes out on top.
You could also call that a three-horse race, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I use scramble.
You're a horse player, so I thought you'd say a three-horse race, but I would say I still give the Lions a little bit of an edge, and Jordan loves turning the ball over too much. What Paul said about the Packers games yesterday is absolutely true. C.J. Stroud had 86 yards passing, and the Packers won that game by 2 points. It was ridiculous. Too many mistakes. Packers still a little bit too sloppy. I give a slight edge to the Lions. And no disrespect to the Vikings, but I think in the three-horse race, I think I give the edge to the Lions.
At the beginning of the year, everybody talked about who has the best offensive line in football, and a lot of people thought it was the Lions.
Sure.
And the way they run the ball, control the ball, and the teams that are running the ball well and controlling the pace of the game with their running game, they're doing very well this year. And I know a couple of years ago, everybody said, well, the running backs don't matter. You don't even need to pay them. I disagreed with it then. I totally disagree with it now. You still need to play fundamental football, run the ball, have a good offensive line, protect the quarterback. And who's playing better at quarterback than Goff?
Maybe Lamar Jackson, but Josh Allen at times. But those three are probably the top three. Yeah.
Let me throw up a couple games coming up this week, and then anybody out there that wants questions, get them ready. I'll be calling out for questions here shortly. Jim, let me go with you. We talked about what the hell's going on with the Eagles. It seems like there's a cancer in the clubhouse. The coach is a mess, but they're traveling to Cincinnati this week. First off, what's your thoughts on the Eagles? Let's go there.
Obviously I have a history with Philadelphia. I was born there, but that doesn't give me an inside track as to what the hell's going on with them, because they fell apart at the end of last year after a booming start. They were incredible at the beginning of the season. They fell apart at the end of the year, and they've just not lived up to expectations this year. Is it the head coach? Is it the relationship between the head coach and the quarterback? What is it? I can't answer the question. They just don't perform to the level you expect them to perform. Maybe somebody else has a better idea.
I made a statement coming into this week against the Giants that Philly was a fake team. They're a fugazi, and I would stick to that. They have not scored a point in the first quarter this entire year. Coming into the Cleveland game, coming into the game prior to the Giants, they had only held teams to 2 3-and-outs the entire year. That's unacceptable. Their offense is kind of pedestrian at this point. Hurts threw 14 passes yesterday. The Giants basically imploded because their left tackle went out, Andrew Thomas, and their offensive line completely cratered. Daniel Jones in the first half sacked 4 times, another 3 in the second half, hit 11 times, and he just couldn't get a clean pocket. I don't think the Eagles are a particularly good team, nor do I think the Bengals are a good team. The Bengals only had 229 yards of offense yesterday, and were the beneficiary of an injury to Deshaun Watson, who was actually playing well at the time he was injured. He was 15 of 18 for 122 yards, had not turned the ball over. They bring in Robinson. Winston is a scratch for some reason, or demoted. Robinson proceeds to lead him to a touchdown on the strength of a run, but then throws 2 interceptions. They didn't deserve to win the game, nor did they deserve to cover. Unfortunately, I was on Cleveland. I did get out of most of my wager at halftime, thankfully, knowing the quarterback situation, but neither team is very good. So this is one that I'm just going to sit back, I know, and take a gander at before I even consider making a live wager.
Matt?
Saquon Barkley had 176 yards rushing yesterday. When he runs like that, the Eagles are going to be a team that can contend.
He didn't even play the fourth quarter.
Right, and Paul's right. The Eagles are the only team in the league that have not scored a point in the first quarter this season. They did score 14 in the second quarter yesterday. I think they've got some problems on the coaching staff, obviously with Nick Sirianni and his coordinators. But Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore are new coordinators, and it's going to take some time. I'm not going to give up on the Eagles yet. Crackman's here today. Bill Krackenberger and I both have a lot of Eagles to win the NFC East futures investments, and I'm not going to give up on this team. Obviously, the Cowboys and Giants are probably not going to figure into the equation, so you got to think it's the Eagles and the Commanders. When you have 2 new coordinators, take some time. Also, the offense was missing its top 2 wide receivers, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown for a while. That makes things tougher on Jalen Hurts to get the passing game going. But I still think the Eagles have the talent. And if they can get the coaching stuff straightened out, I think they're going to be okay. Man, it's a long season. This is week 7 we're going into. Things can look a lot different in week 10, week 14, week 18. So I think a lot of times handicappers, or especially fans and TV commentators, are too quick to bury a team or sometimes praise a team. How much praise did the New Orleans Saints get the first 2 weeks, right?
A lot.
And they're shit now. So I think you just got to be a little careful and a little patient with some of these teams. I still think the Eagles got some potential.
Trade deadline comes up on the 5th, I think, of November. And a lot of these teams at the bottom are going to get rid of some of the better players they have for draft choices and look forward to next year. That will improve teams that have lost good players at the top. And it will also take down the power rating on the lower teams. So what you're going to start to see, I believe, is you're going to see some bigger numbers between the top and the bottom, which is going to create also some dog covers, because at some point these lines are going to get a little too high. And I think we're starting to see that. And so that's kind of what I'm predicting going forward.
Last week we've talked about teasers, we've talked about betting the spread, we've talked about totals. Anybody here on the panel, especially now you brought up a point with Philadelphia not scoring a point in the first quarter, are you a fan or not a fan of a first half bet?
I don't typically bet first halves. No.
Okay.
Sometimes live betting or second half betting, depending on your position on the game, but I rarely find a reason to bet a first half.
Well, if I have the lesser team, I generally want the first half, because as the game progresses, the stronger team sometimes takes hold of the game. Yesterday, I had the Titans in the first half, thankfully, and split it with the game, as I did the team total, which also cashed at plus 130 over 7.5, and did not cash for the game. So sometimes, to me, this can be it can be a strategy that I would employ. Other times, I would not use it. So it really depends on the situation, case-by-case basis.
Situation's a good way to put it too, because the Panthers, if you played them in the first half yesterday, no shot, right? Right from the start. But I would say in college basketball, it's a lot different.
Yeah.
I'm looking to play first half with some college basketball dogs, but not in the NFL. I really don't look to it.
Jim?
Well, I've kind of slowed down on the live betting because, I really haven't been doing that well with it. I've been doing much better with the totals. Overall totals, not half time, but the whole, and the sides have been okay. A little bit plus for the season on the sides, but the totals have been quite remarkable, actually.
Any questions out there from anybody in the audience? Want to ask anybody on the panel? Anybody at all? Not right now? Oh yeah, go ahead. What was your question, sir?
On Fairway Jay, I corresponded with Jim a little bit, and I know Jim said this is the poorest quality he's seen in the NFL in years. And watching some of these games and the lack of quarterback play or some of the scoring, you want to elaborate any further on some of the thoughts?
Go ahead and repeat the question so they get it.
Okay. Well, what Fairway? That's Fairway Jay, a good friend of mine. He's saying that I said that the quality of the NFL is down quite a bit this year, and I will say that again. It is. And I think this comes from what we call the suits making changes to the rules. A few years ago, they said they wanted more scoring. So they started paying quarterbacks a lot of money, but they forgot about the offensive lines. And then a couple of years ago, they said, don't pay the running backs. They don't matter anymore. That's all bullshit. You got to go back to fundamental football. Blocking, tackling, good offensive line, have some good running backs that know how to block for the quarterback, give the quarterback a little bit more time to if you want to open up, go downfield, you got to give the guy a couple minutes. I mean, Deshaun Watson and Jones last week, they couldn't even stand up for 5/10 of a second. They were getting killed. You have to protect the quarterback in order for him to do anything with the ball, unless you're just going to throw 3-yard passes. So I do think the quality of the NFL has changed. The NFL itself at the top said, hey, the public wants more scoring, let's give them more scoring. We're going to go wide receivers, we're going to go quarterbacks, we're going to pay the quarterbacks 30, 40, 50, 60 million dollars, and they forgot to protect them. And it's ass backwards. Yes, I think the quality is way down. You're going to see it the remainder of the season. We've only gone through 7 games. We've got 10 more regular season games to go. And these bad teams are going to get worse because whoever they have that's any good, they're going to be traded up to because the 5th is coming. On November 5th is the trade deadline. Some of these teams are going to get rid of the better players they have, going to the better teams, and which is going to make them worse. It's going to actually get worse than better.
Our quarterback play has declined dramatically. Fairway Jay. Also, I would say the officiating really cheapens the product. You know, you watch these NFL games, there's a flag in like every other play, and it's very difficult to watch. And the NFL is trying to create scoring, but also throwing a lot of flags on the defense. You can't touch receivers. It's a flag fest, and you're moving offenses down the field with penalties in a lot of cases because the quarterback play and the offenses are so bad. Hey, yesterday, Patrick Mahomes and Brock Purdy, 2 of the better quarterbacks in the league, 2 of the best, right? Purdy's probably a top 10 quarterback or close to it now. Those guys combined for 0 touchdown passes and 5 interceptions in the Super Bowl rematch yesterday.
Yeah, well, I'm going to give him a pass because yesterday Purdy, so Jennings is a scratch before the game, as was Debo, and then Ayuk goes out after 3 plays. So who did he have to throw to? George Kittle, who caught 6 balls for 92 yards. So actually he didn't play terribly, all things considered, but yeah, the interceptions were a problem and may in part have been caused by that. But I actually agree with Matt. My biggest problem is the flags, and I'm not going to put it all on the officiating because the answer to less penalties is for the players to, commit less infractions. And sometimes they're way too aggressive. Sometimes these flags have to be thrown, especially with holding. You can't have blatant holding and allow the play to go on without citing it or interference. That is partially a problem because maybe they would allow a little more contact, but then again, years ago, they were allowing a lot less contact. You'd see a lot less physicality amongst the receivers and defensive backs. And now it's just gotten, to a point where, hey, the refs have to throw some flags, but it's very frustrating for the fan.
Jim, you talked about the suits making too many decisions. And I just saw something, I think it was last week, I know it was in the Washington Post, about the NFL Competition Committee considering moving the touchback spot on kickoffs to the 35 to get more teams to return the ball. This whole kickoff thing, I think, has become a fiasco. What's you guys' thoughts?
The 35-yard line is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You're moving the offenses out to midfield to start the drive. It's a joke.
Why don't we just put everybody on the other team's 20-yard line like they do in the overtime in the cup? It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
Crazy stuff.
just go back to the old kickoff, I think.
Yeah, I can recall as a kid going to the Giant games, and the most exciting play was the kickoff. And they've taken that away from the game, and I just think this is a case of overkill. You try to make the game safer, but you're just really taking away. And they should just go back to the old kickoff rules. I totally agree. I don't think you see too many injuries on kickoffs where you have to take this kind of extreme measure. I don't see it.
Any other questions out there?
I have one more.
Sure, go ahead.
I have another thought about, do you think we'll ever get to a point where the committee will consider going to the college rule of 1 foot in on the receptions? For one, definitely would increase scoring a little bit, and is it viable that you make a catch and you got your body and you got a foot down, that they'll consider making that change for scoring purposes and maybe even injuries with receivers having to be as athletic to get that second foot in to take a hit.
So the question is, will the NFL committee ever consider going to 1 foot down instead of 2 feet down to help with scoring?
All right, so I think you have to hold the NFL receivers to a little bit higher of a standard than college. And you remember back in the day, they were the officials had to make a judgment as to whether the receiver would have landed in bounds if he were pushed out. And I'm glad they actually changed that rule, because that gave them too much discretion and left too much to the imagination. So I think they have that one right at this point.
I haven't heard anybody talking about that fairway. So I've never heard anybody bring it up, but it's a great question.
Yes, Chris.
Last week you talked about Hutchinson going out with Detroit after a week of watching them play in a very close game. Do they make any moves on the defensive line?
I think they're going to look at some players. There are players out there on some pretty bad teams that are actually pretty good and that will give some pressure on the quarterback, and I think they will make a move.
I understand they offered the Raiders a pretty good deal, but they turned him down. Did you hear about that?
I've heard that. I don't know.
Well, Detroit should have contacted, I think they did contact the Raiders about Max Crosby.
Yeah, about Crosby.
The thing, Michael Lombardi, whether you disagree with him or not, he former GM of the Browns and personnel guy with the Patriots, said something last week, and he hates the Raiders. And he said the Raiders should not trade Crosby. And there's a different line of thinking that no player on a bad team should be untouchable, right? So the Raiders need to rebuild. They should trade Crosby. I tend to lean that way, but Michael Lombardi said last week you cannot trade your best player. And you have to have somebody. You have to have some talent to build around. You have to have the face of the organization. So I'm torn on that. I tend to think the Raiders, now with Tom Brady in the building, they need to clean house and rebuild. They're going to hire a new coach, get rid of Antonio Pierce. They're going to draft a quarterback. You're probably going to trade up in the draft in the top 5. I would say go ahead and trade Crosby. But to answer your question, I think the Lions are definitely going to make a move. They're going to make a couple moves, probably to fortify their defensive line. There's going to be some players available if they can't get Crosby. But right now, the Lions have to outscore teams, kind of like they did yesterday with the Vikings.
Well, Lions have never won a Super Bowl. If you feel you have a chance to win that Super Bowl, the coveted crown that has eluded them, you sell your soul. You mortgage your future in exchange for the present. And that's the way I think the Lions should approach it, be it Crosby, Myles Garrett, or whoever they have to get to rise above the rest of the NFC. Because right now, I'm not going to say they're the best team there. There's a collective group of teams that you can make a case for. Lions are one of them, but certainly they don't stand out. The only thing I'd say about Baltimore is, the offense looks great. That defense can be had on the back end. We saw Joe Burrow in a game that the Ravens actually should have lost. Thankfully, I won the game miraculously. He went 30 of 39. We saw Dak Prescott mount this huge comeback when they were down by 28 points or thereabouts. So the Ravens have a little bit to prove here. And as you say, one thing about Kansas City, you can never eliminate them just because they have that pedigree and they have the quarterback, and he's just a winner, a proven winner. So it's tight, Jim. I just am not ready to just anoint the Ravens and put them at the top just yet.
Ravens have the #1 run defense in the NFL, 59 yards per game. But like Paul said, that's one thing I want to watch tonight. Baker Mayfield's going to have to try to light up that secondary if the Bucs plus 3.5 is going to get there. I think Jim's got +4. You got the best number tonight.
I do have +4.
You got +4?
Yes.
Over.
Matt, what do you like tonight?
Not much, actually. I
game?
got the Bucs plus 3.5 as a contest play, but no action otherwise.
Paul, you like either game tonight?
I do like I like the Chargers. They have been a stalwart on defense. Last week, 23-16, but that didn't tell the whole story in that win over the Broncos, because they had them shut out, and the Broncos had 327 yards, 226 of which came when it was 23-0. The week prior, they held Kansas City to 17, gave up 20 to the Steelers, but remember, they had those injuries, defensive injuries and offensive injuries during the game, and they held Carolina to 3 points. I want to see if that secondary is at full strength, and if they are, I'm going to go with the Chargers.
Jim, you like either game? Well, you're on one of the games. Do you like them both?
I didn't bet the other game at all. I just have the Bucks.
You just like the Bucks?
Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, you look at Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray has had one good game this year. I cited it before against the Rams, 17 to 21 for 266. Outside of that, this guy has been pedestrian. This offense, passing yardage, he has not eclipsed 214 in the other games. So, and they've been blown out as well. So I do lean Chargers here, and this Arizona offense leaves much to be desired.
Let me ask you guys this. Buffalo traveling to Seattle this week. Interesting game. Good matchup. You guys like this game on any play at all?
Well, Buffalo, Seattle, Gino has had a great passing year. I don't know, is he still leading the league in passing? Mm-hmm. If you don't put pressure on him with that, no, you have to look at DK Metcalf. What's his status? He did get hurt and they carted him off the field.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. I'm not sure he's going to play.
If he's not playing, I mean, I gotta back off of that a little bit because he's in tremendous. I mean, the wide receivers on Seattle are tremendous, and Gino throwing the ball the way. So if you're not putting pressure on, which Atlanta didn't do last week, which they don't do normally, and it paid off, and they had a big win there in Atlanta. Now they're coming home. They got a good situation. Buffalo, they got Cooper now, and that's a dangerous combination. You got. He is a valuable asset, and they just picked him up, and he didn't look all that bad in his first game. It's a dangerous spot, and I don't know. Without DK Metcalf, I'm gonna have to lean to the other side, but I haven't played it.
Okay, Paul or Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, kind of thinking what Jim is there. So Geno Smith passed for 207 yards, 2 touchdowns yesterday. I do think he led the NFL in passing yards going into the game. I didn't have a great day in the NFL yesterday. It was 3-3. But one of the winners I had was Seahawks +3 at Atlanta. They win that game 34-14. I thought that was a great spot for the Seahawks. It's kind of a situational play that played out well. I've got the Seahawks +3 on my short list this week, but the DK Metcalf status is something I've got to watch. I have not bet it yet, and I'm not sure I will.
So, Seattle came into the game yesterday with 2 corners out, including Woolen. Atlanta just couldn't exploit it, and this is a defense that has been ravished at times, notably by Detroit. Jared Goff, 18-18 for 292. And then you look at Buffalo. Look, Josh Allen had a great game yesterday, 21-33 for over 300, but Snead was out on the back end for the Titans, and they had to go with a rookie at the left cornerback, 5th-round rookie, and I think Josh was able to exploit that. But Buffalo has been up and down this year. Let's not forget they were blown out by the Ravens 35-10 in a primetime game, and they have not looked crisp throughout. So it's a game I'm going to have to look at the injury status, but right now I have no play on the game.
Any other questions out there from anybody in the audience? Throw it out to you guys. Anybody? No? Jim, what do you like coming up this week, week 8?
Oh.
Got a look?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look.
Nothing is on the top of your mind that you've been looking at.
Well, while Jim's looking, I can tell you, I think we're going to play the Rams +3 on Thursday night. Short week for the Vikings off a division game. Tough game against the Lions. Hit the road Thursday night. Typically, I like the home team in that spot, especially a home dog. And you talked about it last week on your show. Cooper Kupp was expected to come back for the Rams against the Raiders. He did not, but he is going to be back. It looks like Thursday night, so that definitely should be a big upgrade or a boost for that Rams offense. It really struggled yesterday to move down the field against the Raiders. So a short week with a road favorite. I'm going to fade the Vikings off a division game, I think, in that spot, and probably play the Rams.
Yeah, I like that play.
If now Richardson's back at quarterback for Indianapolis, and we all know that he's extremely talented. He's not the most accurate passer on the short, and he can throw the ball like 100 yards, but on the short passing game, he's a little vulnerable, and when he runs, he's kind of unusual in this sense. He looks for contact, and that's not the most healthy thing to do, which is why he's gotten hurt. They're going to Houston. Houston has not been healthy. They had people out last week that didn't play that well, and they should have lost by more than they did at Green Bay, and their best wide receiver has been hurt. I'm looking at a 6.5 point line here, and some places have it minus 118, minus 120. That looks like a dog to me. Division game.
I don't like Anthony Richardson. Just really don't want to bet on him. I like the Colts so much better with Joe Flacco at quarterback.
Oh, so do I.
Yeah.
Richardson was terrible yesterday.
Yeah.
He was 10 for 29. The only reason they won this game and covered it, much to the chagrin of a lot of sharp guys, Mostert fumbled. Then there was another fumble.
3 fumbles, right?
Yeah, it was 3 fumbles. It was turnovers. I mean, that offense is not good. They had a guy come in yesterday who had 0 tackles this year, and he was actually the hero of the game. He had 19. I forgot his name, but he really stepped up for the Colts on the defensive end. I'll just throw something out on this Rams-Vikings game. I understand the spot, but the Rams are just a bad football team. If you look at this, and I'm going to mention it for a third time, about what Kyler Murray did to him. They allowed Swift to run right through him. Brock Purdy, 22 of 30 for 290 without 2 of his best receivers. So Jennings goes off for 11 for $175. And they actually should have lost yesterday, and I was rooting for that because I'm still in Survivor, and 80 people took the Rams yesterday, and they should be sending Gardner Minshew a box of chocolates today because he turned the ball over 4 times and gave the game away. The only good thing is, consolation prize, I played the Raiders in the second half because they were actually getting the best of it, and they outgained them by 70 yards. So I just can't play this team, although it may be a good spot. Minnesota should really light them up. I like Detroit, Tennessee. I played it over 45. It's 45.5 with the lean to the low side because, again, Detroit has had issues defensively. And I think Tennessee, especially if Snead is out, and I'll watch for that because then they're going to be in trouble in that secondary. And I think they could put a few points on the board. So I think it's 45 is a cheap number. And I also went over on this Jet game, and I pointed it out before. The Jets are just beat up in the back end. And although they totaled 27 points in the first matchup in that primetime game on Thursday night, I just think you're going to see some scoring. Drake May actually can throw the ball more than 10 yards, and he's gotten the ball downfield. I didn't think this guy would be ready, and maybe he'll regress. But as of right now, he is clearly the better option for the Patriots, and I just think you're going to see some scoring because the Jets will have to outscore people at this point. That defense, and Matt pointed out the front end as well, has not been great.
The Saints were a mash unit last week and got destroyed. I mean, they're signing people off the street, and what are the chances they're getting some of these people back? I mean, they're going to go play the Chargers, who are playing tonight, so it's a short week for them. And what's the status of this Saints team? I mean, they're like 7-8 guys out.
Yeah, they lost a guy in the secondary. I think they lost Alante Taylor, but they had no excuse for that the other night. All 4 guys played in that secondary. They had Lattimore in there, Alante Taylor. They had the safety was in, Honey Badger. What happened back there? It was a joke. I have to say, I got sucked in. I thought the Saints would play a much better game, but they just weren't even competitive.
The offense was an embarrassment.
Yeah, it was the whole.
Spencer Rattler looked like a bad college quarterback yesterday. I mean, seriously, that infects the defense too. When your offense is turning the ball over repeatedly and going 3 and out and punting. So yeah, the Saints team I'm staying away from. It's interesting this week. You had 3 favorites on the board. By the way, there's been 2 double-digit favorites in the NFL all season through 7 weeks, and we got 3 double-digit favorites this week. Who thinks the Chiefs are not going to whip the Raiders? Right?
Is that 10 still?
10.
It's too many points.
It's probably too many. I'm not going to play the favorite, but you're going to see the public playing the Chiefs, and the public's going to be all over the Steelers against the Giants.
They don't have any offense. I mean, Noah Gray caught 4 balls for 62 yards. That was the guy. I mean, they're just.
Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about the Chiefs.
Oh.
Yeah, they just don't have any offense at this point. And,
Well, they whipped the shit out of the 49ers yesterday, and I was on the 49ers. Brock Purdy threw interceptions at the 5, the 31, the 34-yard line of Kansas City.
No receivers. No receivers. I mean, look, the Ravens.
It's like he said, Spags is doing a great job as defensive coordinator for Kansas City.
Yeah.
You don't usually get rich laying double digits in the NFL.
No, I wouldn't say so either, but Paul's saying no receivers for the Chiefs. Who do the Raiders have a wide receiver?
Well,
the Raiders have the worst wide receiver group in the NFL.
But you are paying the tax for that by
sure.
laying 10 on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing about the Raiders, and you could see it yesterday, there's been talk, chatter, yeah, they've given up. They didn't throw in the towel yesterday. They were trying. It's just that Gardner Minshew, we all know he's not a starting NFL quarterback, but just don't give the game away.
I want to give some credit where credit's due. Crackman is here. He was on a panel last week and threw out a prop bet that pretty sure hit with Buffalo on Monday Night Football last week. Did you not hit that rushing one under 58?
I think I did. I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that one came in. So.
Meanwhile, just to let you know, major line move on Don Best was Indianapolis Colts. There's no more 6.5s.
No more 6.5s?
Plus 6 minus 15 at Pinnacle. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
There you go.
Jim, you're giving out stuff. People are.
I'm
moving,
sorry I moved the line. I'm sorry.
Any other questions out there from the audience? Anything? Okay, let me go here. Jim, you've been doing this for a long, long time.
You don't have to rub it in.
Actually, with everybody on the panel, I don't even want to add it up. I'm sure it's well around 100 years of experience total and sitting here to my right. But is the NFL in probably the worst, I don't want to say position ever, but I think it's in a bad spot that it's ever been?
Well, you got to remember something. There's 2 things going on here. It's an entertainment product, and it's also a business. And the NFL makes a lot of money.
A lot,
Really a lot. And maybe we're super critical because a lot of us do this for a living, betting on this, analyzing it, talking about it. This is our livelihood. Most of the public just do it for fun. They want to see scoring, they want to see long passes, they want to see, they took away the kickoff returns, and that, like Paul said, I think that was a mistake. But this league is the king of sports in America. I mean, they make so much money, they can afford to make mistakes, and we have to live with it. It's
where does it go from here?
Well, they continue to make mistakes until they get it right. That's usually what people do. People at the top a lot of people at the top have never played the game. They're just suits.
Exactly.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean, Elon Musk never played football, and he's got more money than in the whole city of Las Vegas. So, Jerry Jones owns the most expensive franchise in football, in many sports. But arguably, he's destroyed that team for 27 years. And he doesn't even have a clue that he's done it.
Paul?
So what it comes down to is it's the only game in town. What else are you going to do on a Sunday? I'm not going to the outlet stores with my girl. So I'll tolerate it if the game happens to take her off a little bit for a while. These things come full circle. So maybe in a year or two, the game will be back at a high level. They'll figure some things out.
Yeah, like financially, the NFL's never been in a better spot, though. That's why it's going to continue the way it is, and you're not going to see major changes. They're always trying to tweak the rules. I think micromanaging the game on the field too much. It's over officiated, and the quarterback plays down. But the NFL as a whole is a booming business, and it has a lot to do with sports betting and fantasy football.
And I also haven't heard about it now in a few weeks, but there was some talk about moving the Super Bowl to Martin Luther King weekend, where everybody would have Monday off. So I don't know if that's still an option they're looking at, and moving it back a week. And
all that stuff's going to happen. You're going to have
no preseason.
You're going to have a franchise overseas or two. There's going to be a lot more overseas games. Everything they can do to generate revenue is going to happen.
And it will happen. I mean, years ago, I used to publish a magazine. I don't do it anymore. I haven't for probably the last 10 years. But one year, somebody did a study in London how the magazine would sell. So we printed 50,000 magazines and shipped them to London. In the first day, they were all sold. That one day, I mean, we never promoted it or anything. It just got in the newsstands over there through a distributor, and in one day, every magazine was sold. And this was a long time ago.
Was your picture on the cover? Maybe it was you.
I was naked.
You might want to redistribute that.
I don't look that way anymore.
You want to redistribute that publication over in London again?
Maybe I will.
Yeah, as far as going to Martin Luther King weekend, the season's been expanding. You would have to contract the season. I don't understand how that could possibly happen.
You're right.
Unless you started the season.
You're talking about stretching out the season and putting in another.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean in January. I meant in February. Not Martin Luther King in January. President's Weekend or whatever.
President's
February.
Okay.
Yeah, moving it back. I'm sorry, not January. It's the holiday in February. That's like a week or two later. Everybody has Monday off. They want to move it to that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Hey, can I interject one thing? I mean, last night we watched the end of the WNBA, and I'm not here to promote the WNBA, although I think it's a fantastic product.
It's not.
You don't. They're not. They play hard.
I'm going to show you a highlight clip from last night's game and show you what a fantastic product it is in just a minute. Missed layups and turnovers.
Of course.
By the way, the WNBA lost $40 million this year. It's also a bad business model.
There's a reason it's growing, though. There's something going on there. Here's my point. When you watch an NBA game and you put money down on an NBA game, and we all do that, and then you go there and the players that you think are playing are sitting on the bench, they're taking a night off. I think that's ruined the product.
Oh, the NBA stinks, but that doesn't mean the WNBA is good.
Well, they're growing. If you look at the number of people that attend these games and watch these games, the numbers are going up.
I had a lot to do with Caitlin Clark this year because she's got such a big fan base.
Which came out of college.
And then most of the players in the league despise Caitlin Clark because she gets too much attention. There's a lot of things we can talk about here that I really don't want to say publicly, but I think the league is garbage.
So
I agree with Matt.
They lost $40 million. Maybe they're using the Amazon business model. Lose money for the first part. But seriously, I agree with you, and it's a shame with what's going on with Caitlin Clark. It really is. Some adjustments should be made, at least.
Well, she almost had a hole-in-one the other day when she was in a practice round. Maybe she'll play golf. We all play golf. We don't get too many hole-in-ones.
Last call for questions out there before we go through final thoughts and give away a couple bottles of wine. Any questions? Nope. Okay. Matt, I'll start with you and work our way back to Jim. Final thoughts on what you saw this last week. And
you talked about with the Chiefs 49ers game, and I know it has a lot to do with injuries. Right now you're seeing injuries all over the league take a toll on these teams. Poor offensive line play, wide receiver cores are decimated, and that impacts the quarterbacks too. Who would have thought Patrick Mahomes and Brock Purdy would combine for 0 touchdown passes and 5 interceptions in the Super Bowl rematch yesterday? 49ers are really banged up with a lot of key injuries right now. Niners are home against the Cowboys this week. You would typically think, well, Niners always handle the Cowboys. They're going to have, but the offense is so decimated that I'm not sure what I'm going to play there. Actually, I ended up liking the NFL card a lot in week 7. It was so-so for me in terms of results. I don't really like much on this NFL week 8 card right now, but sometimes that can change later in the week the more you look at the games.
Paul?
Well, yeah, I would just echo what Matt stated. There's a lot of injuries. Injuries are creating some blowouts. Look at Carolina. I mean, they just lost everybody on defense, and it showed up in the number. The number eventually drifted up to 10. I think it opened 7.5, and as expected, it was a blowout. And the Jet game turned into a blowout. So quarterback play, injuries, but like I said, there's a winner in every week. There's a winner in every game. Yesterday wasn't the best day in the NFL for me in terms of contests, but you know, financially it was okay because I made some moves during the game. But next week, I don't love the card, but there'll always be something. Injuries so always present opportunities as they unfold throughout the week, and we'll look for the best of it. Props are always up there. Did well on the props yesterday. Props are there. There's so many choices. Bookmakers can never get that right. So if you don't like the card, look for the props.
Well, as mentioned too, that I just sent Jim Feist a highlight video from last night's WNBA Finals Game 5. Okay?
Okay, so we found something we don't agree on, but I'm going to remind you what you told me before. Don't forget to lay the money line on those
That's
short
right.
favorites, because we both like to do that. And if a game's 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, or 3, Matt and I tend to play the money line instead of laying the points. I remembered to do that with the Packers. He did not.
That's
And
true.
it-
I
and
almost
the
always
funny
do.
thing is, he never does that, and he did it once, and he caught it.
Right. That's
So-
I did have the Packers on the money line parlay, but I lost the Packers as a contest play. Lost the Packers minus 2.5, and I almost always bet the money line in that situation.
I got a little lucky
Absolutely.
yesterday because I played the Packers on the money line, and you know my I don't know, it's old age, whatever. So I threw a play up on the betting exchange on Thursday, laying 140 with Houston. I wanted to lay 140 with the Packers, and I completely forgot about it and got off all my action on the Packers on the money line. Well, lo and behold, I checked my account this morning, and surprise, surprise, somebody took a third of it, which was a very nice chunk. So occasionally those lapses in memory can work out in your favor, but sometimes they just don't. So I'm even. I'm 1-1 this year on those.
Well, before we give away a couple bottles of wine, I want to make sure everybody understands. Every Monday, we're going to be here on the patio, noon to 1, for the Jim Feist NFL Handicapping Show. Next week on the panel, we're going to have Jeff Whitelaw and Wes Reynolds will be here to join Jim. But let's give a round of applause, not only Jim Feist, but Matt Youmans and Paul Bovi, everybody. Let's give away a couple bottles of wine. Elber, I guess everybody's got some tickets. And what's our two winners?
The winners are 054 and 056.
Who's got 054 and 056?
I sent you.
054 and 056.
Stop picking on
There
me.
we go, the winners. Right
There
there.
we go. We got the two winners.
I need more things to bet on.
The two winners. That's going to do it for this episode of the Jim Feist Pro Football Handicapping Show at Dom DeMarco's. My name's Tommy Canale. We will see everybody next week.